Hey folks, and welcome back to Shout Esports. I'm your host, Jess Brohard, and in this episode, we're going to talk about how to start creating content, what to say when talking to your audience, and what to do when no one tunes in. When creating content, be conscious of what you bring to the table and balance that with what the audience wants to see. Find your niche. You might have to do a bit of trial and error to find out what works for you, but everybody has something to bring to the table. Some people want to be variety streamers, while others prefer to stick to a certain game or genre, and there are definite advantages to both. If you stick to one game, you can make a name for yourself by becoming active in that community, getting really good at that game, and developing new strategies that others can follow, and networking with other content creators that play your game. In fact, if you're good enough to actually go pro, that's another path you can take. Compete in tournaments, gain a following as you place highly or win events, and fans you make along the way will likely tune into your stream just so they can watch the impressive plays. Going pro isn't really a teachable thing, certainly not something that I can teach you in this series at least, so we won't spend too much time talking about that. One challenge if you do decide to stream one specific game is that if you ever feel like streaming something else, some of your audience might not tune in. Plus, if you choose a really popular game like COD, there are always a ton of other people also streaming that game that you're competing with for views. If you're a variety streamer, on the other hand, your goal is probably going to be to build a strong community around your own personality and entertainment value that isn't tied to one specific game. Plus, if you pick a smaller game but one that still has a good player base, you'll show up higher on Twitch's list of streams since it often defaults to ranking by active viewers. But the main challenge here is you have to genuinely be incredibly entertaining regardless of what game you're playing. And don't forget about non-gaming content. If you really like baking, working out, or playing an instrument, for example, create content around that. Now let's talk viewership. If your viewership is sitting at 0 at first, that's okay, that's kind of expected. But you should still act like you have viewers to entertain. You never know when someone will tune in, and you want to make sure you're putting on a good stream when they do. If you're just sitting silently while you play a game, they'll probably click out to a different stream pretty quickly. Plus, every stream is an opportunity to hone your craft. Like any hobby, it takes practice, and even if no one's watching, you can get better at stirring up a conversation. Try narrating what you're doing in-game, talking about your day, or bringing up something interesting that you've been thinking about lately. Maybe share an opinion or ask questions. Anything to basically start a conversation that somebody passing through might be able to jump in on. Once you do start getting those first few viewers, please remember that unless you're getting viewbotted, every viewer is an actual person taking the time out of their day to watch you. So be sure not to treat your viewers like they're just a number on a screen. Don't complain about lower viewership, and try your best not to let it affect your mood. There are different schools of thought on whether you should even look at your viewer count. I know a lot of creators who, especially at first, don't even look at how many viewers they have until after they finish streaming. And if that helps you focus more on the stream rather than getting a bit down on yourself about having low viewership, then go for it. One common question people ask me before they begin streaming is, what about the trolls in chat? But honestly, to have trolls, you have to have viewers. So don't let yourself get worried about something that hasn't happened yet. If you have haters, it means you're doing at least something right. When you do get your first trolls, however, one way you can look at it is that a lot of trolls are really just providing feedback in a really ugly package. For instance, maybe chat makes fun of a weird quirk that you didn't even know you had, like twitching your nose a lot while you play, which is exactly what I used to do. And when chat started mentioning it, I got more conscious of it and I was able to stop doing it. But that doesn't mean you have to put up with any messages that are rude or disrespectful. Don't put up with harassment or hate speech just because you don't want to lose the viewer. They're not someone who would likely stick around and join your community long term anyway. Let's talk about some things to do while you're not streaming. As you've probably gathered, it's not as simple as just going live. There's a ton of work to be done while you're offline, and on that note, don't feel pressured to stream every single day. Grinding is not the same as creating good content, and if you're live 40+ hours a week, you're not leaving yourself any time for video editing, social media, managing your community, networking, watching other streamers, etc. It's probably a good idea to establish a streaming schedule, but I don't think it's absolutely necessary, especially if it comes at a detriment to your mental health. Once you've streamed at least a couple times, take some time to clip anything funny or interesting that happens during those broadcasts. Even if no one was watching you while you were live, you can still use that content. Post it to YouTube and Twitter and start growing your following on those platforms. We'll talk more about how to effectively use social media in a future episode, but for now, take a look at Ashley Roboto, Paladin Amber, and Jambo. These three in particular are great at clipping funny moments on stream and sharing them on Twitter, often getting hundreds or thousands of retweets. On that note, learn from other streamers. Take note of what you like and what you don't like in terms of overlays, transitions, and how they run their community. Don't blatantly copy someone's content, but if you notice a trend, like using macro keys for a comedic zoom effect, like this, let that influence you. A lot of your content shouldn't necessarily be focused on the gameplay itself, but rather on your reaction to it. If you think jump scares are funny, load up some horror games and react to them, and feel free to exaggerate your reactions a bit. It'll still be your genuine personality coming through, but you are there to entertain an audience, so it's okay if everything is heightened a bit. One interesting idea I've heard a lot of streamers talk about is taking an improv class. Often the difference between a comedian and a streamer isn't so vast. Both are trying to make people laugh, read the audience, react to things, and think on their feet. This is also especially helpful if you're also looking to pursue hosting and casting, which is what we'll cover in our February episode of Shout Esports. If you want to catch up on previous episodes where we talked about the equipment and software you need to begin streaming, you can find those videos and more at GameInformer.com or on the Game Informer YouTube channel. If you have any questions or feedback for me, you can always catch me on Twitter at Jess Brohard or hop into my chat when I'm streaming at twitch.tv/Jess. And I'll catch you guys next time for some esports news.